you doing? Hope you're keeping all right. Here I am in the orange room again, looking at some more allies for warband choices in the woods. And today we're going to have a look at the Hillfolk first of all. Now I mentioned last week leprechauns. I love leprechauns. Leprechauns are Hillfolks, guys. We're going to look at those today. We're also going to look at Spriggans. And these are obviously two extremely different warbands. Okay, so your leprechauns, what you're looking at is Fate Weavers. You've got a Fate Weaver as a leader and Fate Weaving troops as well. And no limit on Fate Weaving troops, only based on points, so you can have a lot of them if you like. We're talking owls for movable spotting capability, and then we're talking a few regular, fairly cheap troops to throw into doing actually the maneuverability. I say fairly cheap. I mean they're what, 25% more expensive than regular 12th troops. So they're not cheap, but they're cheap in comparison to the rest of your troops in a leprechaun warband. So that's what we're looking at, tricksy fate weaving stuff. In comparison, Spriggans are a kind of two-stage thing. So they have this weird thing where during hours of darkness, they're these giant, monstrous rocky beasts who are basically impervious to all harm. And during the daylight, they're these tiny little diminutive sprites running around. I say sprites, there are sprites in the woods, so I probably shouldn't confuse those terms, but you know what I mean. These tiny little creatures running around, hoping not to get whomped by anything that comes close to them. So they're quite different. And so what allies might they have in common, or what might be the better allies for each group? Now they are both unseelie. So we're going to do like we did last time and weed out the seelie Hillfolk. So the Peck with their Narg spirit hosts, they won't be coming into play. The Balkan, the shape-shifting goat creatures, they're not going to be coming into play. So that leaves us with Puka and Tro and Barguests. Now, I want to put a word in for the Barguest. Okay, the Barguest I first came across in a TV show called Roger and the Rotten Trolls. And if anyone else remembers Roger and the Rotten Trolls, join me in saying Jim Jam Jaha. Brilliant stuff. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's I'm not going to explain anything. I'm just going to let you find it for yourself. It is fantastic. And I'm standing by that, even if you watch it and you say, what are you talking about? That's rubbish. I'm standing by it. It's fantastic. Okay. But anyway, the Barguest is like the big, bad, scary monster in that. And it's taken from British folklore. So it felt appropriate to bring it in here. And to make it cool and scary and worth taking. Now, they are expensive. We're looking at 28 points for a Barguest. That's more expensive than a Spriggan. That's significantly more expensive, although actually not much more expensive than the Feared Egg. It's only a point more than the Feared Egg, which is the Fate Weaver. But taking a Fate Weaver who's also quite strong, but not very fast. So maybe there's a balance there. I don't know. Yeah, you're probably going to take the Feared Egg. Okay, but Barguests are these big black dogs, okay, with glowing red eyes and fiery breath. And that is going to be that big selling point here, okay? They're terrifying, so they have an aura of fear. They also have night vision, which is going to be important if as Spriggans you're running around in the dark, or if as leprechauns you're going to be calling the crows and making areas of darkness where your enemies can't see within them. Having a creature that's got night vision is going to be particularly useful because fiery breath, guys. Fiery breath, a ranged weapon. And okay, only a ranged weapon with an impact of 2, but an inbuilt ranged weapon that doesn't have to be loaded every time because it's just a flaming breath attack. Neither of these warbands have anything in the way of ranged attacks as standard. Okay, they can pick up and chuck stones, but there's really no capacity for a leprechaun or a Spriggan warband to have ranged attacks. So having a Barghest gives you that ability. And if you can shoot things in the dark that can't see you and can't shoot you, that's going to be worth taking, and that's possibly 28 points worth of worth taking. In addition, they're pretty scary. I mean, they're not that strong, but they're pretty fast moving. Not as fast as Whist Hounds, but fairly fast moving. And their claws and teeth have a straight up impact of 4, so they're not terrible in if they get a hit in either in close combat. But basically, and they can swallow things. Yeah. Okay. So we like things that can eat things. Okay. There's not that many of them, but there are those. So yeah, a terrible fleet woodman grappler Aura of Fear with breath attack. Get yourself a Barghest. Why not? Okay, I think we've sold you on the Barghests now. Right, Puka are the next thing. These are the kind of goat-headed spirity creatures that feature in Barrow Ring Burning. If you haven't seen that, check that out. They feature fairly prominently in there. These are also night vision creatures, so useful. These also have Aura of Fear, and they also have Call the Crows. So if you're looking to make your Spriggans big, maybe take yourself a Puka for 22 points and cover an area in darkness and run along behind the Spriggan so that it's still in darkness so it gets its big form. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe. Aura of Fear. Remember that, actually, because you might have to run at a distance because Aura of Fear affects your own troops as well. Do you remember that? So maybe, who knows? They have a single-minded skill, which means that they have a certain thing that they're going to want to achieve, and they're better in the game until they achieve that one thing. So that gives you a bit of flexibility. And they're also synchronized. We talked about this with the Boggarts. So a group of Puka is going to be more effective than a single Puka, but maybe you want a single ram-headed guy in your warband. I'm not going to rave about them as much as the Barghests, but they look cool. Maybe have a Puka. Who knows? And the other Hillfolk that I mentioned is the Tro. Now the Tro also feature pretty heavily in Barrow Ring Burning. So there you go. We're doing a big selling point for Barrow Ring Burning today. Poise, fleet, live, balance, duck under, light fingers. 21 points, highly strong, impetuous. They come with cloaks as standard. Courage 3, agility 3. This is going to be a fast-moving, tricksy character who is going to be up for stealing stuff off people, basically, running around nicking things from people, swiping objectives from under your enemies' noses. The Spriggans might need that. They're quite good at that in their small form, but as they're also a bit weak and feeble in their small form, having someone a bit hardier who's going to be able to do it might be useful to you. The leprechauns basically do that already pretty much. Although I'm just going to have a look at the speed, because I think the speed of a regular leprechaun. What are we looking at? So the Cluricorns, who are the kind of drunken leprechauns, they're the speedy ones. They're courage 2, agility 3, so they're moving 5 up to a maximum of 12. So they're have they got sufficient? No, they haven't got sufficient to sprint 3 walks. So they're walking 5, they're sprinting 10 in a turn, whereas the Tro are walking 6 and sprinting 12. So they are faster. They're the same price as a Cluricorn, so what you're not getting is the Call the Crows skill. You're not getting the Thief trait. Who knows if that's a good thing or not. You're getting much less wisdom. Tros are not that bright. If you've read Barrow Ring Burning, you'll know that Tros are not that bright. And you're getting an extra point of endurance. So they're tougher, but less intelligent Cluricorns. So it might be worth looking at one just as an extra thing to add into your army. Okay, so that's Hillfolk. We've had a bit of a look at Hillfolk. Let's take a look now at Minefolk. Again, 2 very, very different armies here. We've got Gnomes, who are the sort of organised, disciplined, very meticulous types, and goblins who are madcap frenzied, run into the fray and get stuck in and not be terribly effective. But again, as we saw in at Beach a couple of weekends ago, they get bogged down because it takes an awful lot to take a goblin out. They've got their goblin armor, they've got their sort of rubbery skin. It takes an awful lot to smash through a boggart's defense. So they're very good at bogging things down. And the gnomes here are Seelie. They're former employees of the Fae and on fairly good terms with them. The goblins, former slaves of the Fae, absolutely not on good terms with them, are unseelie. So now we've got some differentiation here. So the gnomes are looking for seelie allies, the goblins are looking for unseelie allies. We've also in this category got the Norlocks, who are seelie, although they shift and deal with basically anyone who will deal with them, but they are technically seelie, so they're also looking for seelie allies. I guess they'd be looking for more sort of warrior types. So Norlocks and gnomes can ally with each other, but you're limited to the standard profiles. So maybe it's not so interesting to look at allying those. Unfortunately, that's really the options, because the only other troop type, or the only other creature type in the Minefolk section is the Kobold. And they're unseelie, so they can ally with goblins. And it's worth allying them with goblins because you get a metal worker, so you get someone who can repair goblin armor and can also reforge the goblin armor. So if you randomly generate goblin armor that you don't like, having a kobold lets you regenerate it as something else. They can rework the armor. So if you're running goblins or any other, in fact, unseelie troop, and you can recruit one later on, it's worth taking a kobold for looking after your army. But you don't have any other options. I'm sorry, goblins, you don't have any other options to ally with at the start of the game. And gnomes and Norlocks, you have the option to ally with each other. So let's have a look and see, is there any reason why a Norlock warband would want to ally with a gnome? What do you get? What do you get with a gnome that you don't get with a Norlock? You're not getting decisiveness advantages because although the gnomes are wiser, they don't have as much perception or courage. You're getting a strength bonus, but not a lot of a strength bonus. They're the same points, so that at least gives you something. Losing a point of courage, losing a point of agility, gaining a point of endurance. I'm not going to say that there's anything. I'm not going to say there's any reason. Okay, the only reason that I can think that a Norlock would want to take a gnome ally in their starting warband is if it then gives you access to gnome equipment, because gnome equipment is good, okay? But it doesn't. You don't have that option to buy your ally equipment straight off. They can, trade for it later on, but also gnome equipment is really expensive, so it's going to take you a little while to save up for that massively effective heat lance, or for a set of reflective armor, or for just a really big French horn if you like a big French horn, or sousaphone, or whatever else you want to equip your models with. I don't really see that working particularly effectively, or making much logical sense. Similarly, gnomes taking Norlocks, you're getting shifty light fingers is what you're getting. Eagle Eyes Fleet light fingers, that combination, which makes them good for sort of stealing stuff. And you're getting a bit of ranged attacks from the slings. But again, the reason that you'd want to take Norlock's allies, let's face it, is to hide them up in the hills with a Norlock musket and shoot stuff that's plaguing your gnomes. And you can't do that on standard. Okay, a Norlock musket is cheaper than a Baka Heat Lance, for example, but it's still going to be a little while before you can purchase one, and it's not going to be a thing that you can take from the start, and all the while you're saving up for one that's a fairly pointless Norlock. So you might as well just go for a standard gnome troop, and just checking. Yeah, you might as well just go for a regular gnome, and buy yourself a Norlock with a Norlock musket at a later point when you can afford one. There's no point having a Norlock hanging around the warband for no good reason. So yeah, sorry people running Minefolk. You don't have much options in the way of allies, but you've got plenty of options within the warband list. So don't feel too hard done by. Cool. So that's taking a look at another couple. We're going to wrap up allies next week. We're going to look at the remaining allies. So see you again. Excuse me. See you again. Same time, same place. Take care.